Apex SUV at Cherry Shell Harbour.
Welcome to Saturday League Kickoff.
Welcome to Saturday League Kickoff. It's very funny. I wish we could film what's happening when we're not on air.
We don't.
I just asked Webby. I love Kenny Rogers. He said, "Have you seen him lately?" He said, "Well, he's not around."
He's brown bread.
I didn't realise.
Off to a flyer.
Respectfully.
Someone had a big Anzac Day. That's what the problem is.
Oh, I think a lot of people had a great Anzac Day. What a great weekend it is, and welcome. If you're listening through the SEN network or watching through Fox League on this Saturday morning, what a great weekend it is. I want to say congratulations, everyone who attended dawn services yesterday. Doesn't matter the conditions that you're under, whether it was raining, stormy in eastern parts of Queensland, but also who attended the NRL games over the weekend, because it's one of the very few days in our calendar in the modern age where it doesn't dissect the community.
That's right. It's an important, probably the most important day on the calendar in this country, and I love that rugby league gets to share with it. That's the day when football comes second, but it's a day of solemn remembrance, but also a day to celebrate, and we do that with three great games of football, and particularly what we see at Allianz every year. That game's been going since 2002, and we've always had some pretty special games and some special moments. But what happens before that match in particular, Sats, is always pretty spine-tingling stuff. So, and they do it very well, the NRL.
Remember that game, one of the games where it was hailed out?
I was there.
Yeah, they all had to go into the dressing sheds for a long period of time, didn't they?
I was stuck in a corporate box.
Oh,
and it was really
terrible.
tough, just sitting in there waiting for the game to resume. I've been to quite a few great games there. As a Dragons man, the 2005
is
match,
that the Ben Cray?
The Matt Head sideline conversion.
And then is that the one where? Oh no, there's one where Ben Cray scored off a Michael Wayman offload. They had to score 2 tries in like 4 minutes.
Yeah, that would have been.
I think it was Matty Pryor scored.
2010, it would have been.
Anyway,
and then obviously for the Rooster side of things, the Mitchell Pearce field goal in Golden Point in 2017. There's just been some epic matches there, but it was all Roosters yesterday, wasn't it?
It was.
They were in some sort of form.
We're going to touch on that and the other games across the Anzac Day weekend as well, including Thursday night when the Brisbane Broncos were back to their best against the Doggies. Our listeners, well, you are the smartest part of the show, not myself and Webby. So text the show 0457 736 736. But we love you to call the show as well. Give us your opinion about what's happened over the weekend. 1300 01 11 70 is the number. Are we galvanised or are we all galvaned out?
I'm galvaned out.
Galvaned out. We are going to touch on it a little bit because I thought Shane Richardson was very good throughout the week when he was with James Graham on the Buy Round podcast. So we're going to touch on that a little bit later on, but plenty more to talk about across the weekend. Of course, the Bears, now not across the line as yet, but in principle, the ARLC are agreeing that they potentially will be the 17th team for 2027.
They'll come in. I expect that to be announced. Maybe not. I don't know if it'll be in this week in the lead up to Magic Round. I expect it to be the week after that. They might do it up at Magic Round, but it's a fait accompli. It's pretty much a done deal. They just need to sign the contracts. And as we know in rugby league, that means everything. As long as the deal's signed, nothing else will happen.
I think Magic Round would be a good time to announce it actually on the Saturday because at Magic Round you see so many North Sydney Bears jerseys.
Good point.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be bad to get amongst that excitement.
I remember that being a Magic Round last year, and there was all this debate about it was all the talk that the PNG bid was going to collapse, and then it got rescued at Magic Round, such as the magic of Magic Round. So maybe they'll announce it up there next week. But anyway, it's the Western Bears are in. There's sort of divided. There's a bit of debate about whether it is the right thing for the game or not, but it's going ahead.
Yep. Whether you agree with it or not, it's exciting for the game.
It's exciting for the Bears. That's the best. For me, that's the best part of the story. That the great North Sydney Bears have been brought out of hibernation. Yep. Do you like that?
People sitting in that oak tree at the end. Is that an oak tree? The tree at the end of
Moreton Bay Fig.
Moreton Bay Fig, is it? What's a Moreton Bay Fig doing in Sydney?
They're everywhere.
Well, Moreton Bay's in Queensland.
I know, but the seeds have come down.
Okay, what has stood out over the last 24, 48 hours throughout the week? Let's get to our Saturday Spotlight.
The Spotlight.
What about you, Webby?
Mine's Sandon Smith. He had an absolute stormer in that game.
Owned it, didn't he?
He absolutely owned it, including a sin binning. But he played. I don't know. There seems to be a lot of talk about who's going to be the partner in the halves for Sam Walker going forward at the Roosters. Sandon Smith has played some football this year to suggest that he should be the guy, very much so. And he had an absolute ripper against the Dragons yesterday. So he's my Saturday spotlight.
Also coming up on the show, very exciting. We love it when we get the coaches on who have won on Thursday or Friday night. They're in a great mood, and we're going to get Craig Bellamy on, who had a good win last one against South. He knew they were going to be a difficult side. Well, anyone is when they're coached by Wayne Bennett. And we are going to touch on the Latrell Mitchell sin binning. And before we get to that interview, this is what Cam Munster had to say post-game.
Look, it's a contact sport, and at the end of the day, I know we're trying to protect a lot of players with obviously the head knocks and stuff, but I'm probably on the side of Craig. It's very hard to determine how hard it is. It's slippery out there, it's wet, force on force. Has a lot of speed. Silver's very quick. Latrell's very big, and I don't know where you want Latrell to go there. Silver's obviously trying to engage him to be able to pass, and he slipped over.
Yeah, and we're going to touch on that a little bit later on about that sin binning of Latrell Mitchell. Both got our opinions on it as well. And I think what Cam Munster said, I think he nailed it. I think he shows the maturity of Munster as well. He sort of gave it a response which is a real sort of current player response.
I thought it was very articulate from Cameron Munster.
Yeah.
I thought he was, and I know it was appreciated in the South's camp for sure, but he made a lot of sense. And to me, what Cameron Munster had to say really summed up just how tricky it must be for a player these days. We're going to talk to Craig Bellamy soon. I'm interested to know what he thinks of just the way that the rules have changed, interpretations, just how the speed of the game. If anyone knows, it'll be Craig Bellamy.
If you have got a question for Craig Bellamy, 0457 736 736, and we'll do our best to get to it as well. My Saturday spotlight comes from Thursday night. Now, I think Adam G he's arguably probably top 2 referees in the game on field.
Yes.
I think he should be left out of the bunker. I think he should be left out of the bunker.
He's good on the field.
He's great on the field. He's outstanding. Now we saw.
When he's good on the field, he was good in that grand final when he puts the whistle away a little bit. That's when he lets
missed
the game
out on a
flow.
lot of the final series last year.
Why was that?
We don't know. We don't know. Maybe it's decisions in the heat of the moment. Not quite sure. There's obviously these KPIs that everyone has to try and achieve, and maybe he wasn't achieving them. But I thought there was a couple on. He was in the bunker on Thursday night. That Bulldogs and Brisbane Broncos game. I feel as they probably missed a couple of those opportunities with those high shots. Now, they're facing some lengthy suspensions, 3 of the Bulldogs players. I thought the Josh Curran one was
I thought it was terrible.
Yeah, it was
I thought it deserved a
shoulder to the head, no attempt at wrapping the arm. I thought the Tupanua, the raised knee. And now Paul Sirenen that was part of his trademark, was that lifted knee, but he probably wasn't as prominent as what Tupanua used it the other day as well. But the Marcelo Montoya one was probably the most interesting one, penalised, when it's a little bit like what happened, I think, with Latrell Mitchell and also Fa'alongo. So the player slipping, not much you can do, split second, very small margin of error as well, we're not taking into account. So Adam G, great on the field, probably leave him out of the bunker.
Fair enough.
Yeah, okay. Hey, let's get on.
Dumping him from the bunker.
Dump him from the bunker, which he probably mightn't mind. I'm doing you a favour, Adam. I'm doing you a favour, okay?
The referee's friend, I love it.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into the Anzac Day clashes. Roosters 46, Dragons 18. They were so dominant from the opening minutes, weren't they, the Roosters?
Well, it was I tell you what, it felt like a genuine Anzac Day game when there was an all-in brawl on the sideline, and I saw David Clemmer come rushing in and collar Victor Radley and pull him aside, and then they've gone actually through the bottom gate. They're in that corner at Allianz Stadium. All we needed was Rabs to say, "Oh, shut the bottom gate! He'll run out of the stadium." And I thought, here we go. And I loved how they laughed and sort of and shrugged it off, and then got into the game. But it didn't take long, I thought, for the Roosters just to roll right through the middle of the Dragons, and the space opened up, and they're away. I thought when Finau scored for the Dragons that runaway try after Holmes crunched Savala, I thought, here we go, like this is the game on, and then the Roosters responded, and it was pretty much all over by half time, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. Was it 20-6 at half time? Sandon Smith, we mentioned, man of the match, 22 points, 2 tries. Sin bin, which is probably the biggest, off the field for 10 minutes and still so dominant in the game, which, like you just alluded to earlier on, just says to us that he's a quality player.
plays a role. Doesn't matter where it's a 7-6 or whether he plays hooker or 14, whatever it may be. But unfortunately, you got Connor Watson there as well. He can play a bit of hooker and a bit of half and a bit of 14 as well. And Dr.
Is there an
Clay.
argument? Is there an argument for the Roosters to stick with this halves combination when Sam Walker comes back?
No.
Walker, Sandon Smith.
No.
You don't think
Oh
so?
no, Walker, Sandon Smith.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
what I mean. Yeah. No, I'm not talking about Hugo, but I mean, is it worth having just persisting with that? Because they're talking about all these other players, all these halves that they're trying to get.
I think
they get linked to everyone. I just think why not persist with Sandon?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, but also I think that Hugo Savala his future in especially like the 7 is probably not ideal.
No,
because he's still only young and he's so tall and imposing.
He's a unit, isn't he?
He's probably heading more towards Matty Rogers, my colleague throughout the week, will be laughing at home watching this. But he's probably moving more to the 13 jersey, more of a threat.
Why would Rat be laughing?
Because every player that I think has a bit of a running ability and a little bit of skill with the ball and that are over sort of like 6'2", 6'3", I always say to Matty Rogers, I think they're a 13. So he thinks I'm moving everyone towards the 13 jersey. And that's Isaiah Yo's fault. That's the shed.
It is. Well, he's sort of got an Isaiah build, doesn't he?
Exactly, yeah. So on Sandon Smith, their coach Trent Robinson, he was asked about Sandon Smith and his performance, his maturity in the game after the match.
I really, right from the start, obviously, he's got really good vision. And when he obviously took off for that try. Did he score it? I think that first one ran through. And then when he grubber kicked, I think it ended up being a lying dropout, but sort of played square, saw where Gutho was and took it on. His positioning was in the right spot. You could see he's got really good vision. And when he plays like that, he sees a lot. So it was, credit to him. And even to handle 10 minutes and then to come back on and continue that on, it didn't break the form, was really nice.
Yeah, very mature. Played a really mature game. He thinks run first rather than pass, so he's outstanding. What about the dummy that he threw to Gutho? I mean, Gutho's been around the block a few times.
He did it twice, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
It was, as a Dragons fan, it's hard to take. Listen, the judiciary charges from the match have dropped. Sandon Smith...
nothing to answer for.
Well, he's got a grade 1 charge. First offence, $1,000 if he takes the early plea. Nia Corey is the same for the Warriors. Leo Thompson, he is the same for the Knights.
Mm-hmm.
Now Latrell is looking at 1 match if he takes the early plea. Ooh, CSI.
Hey, can you remember
and
back
2 matches if he's guilty at the panel.
Can you remember back in the day when you used to accumulate points?
Yeah.
So 100 points represented 1 week, 200 points 2 weeks. I didn't mind that system.
Yeah,
you know what?
But the problem is though, if you accrue points and then you have something small minor happen towards the end of the season, you're rubbed out of finals matches and grand finals. Yeah, that's right. That's right. You don't really. I don't know. I don't know. You know what? I've got sort of. We've chopped and changed the judiciary system and the match review so many times. I don't know what to believe anymore. I don't know what's a great system.
Have the New South Wales selectors, have they given up on James Tedesco playing Origin? Or does James Tedesco want to play Origin? Because it's fair to say both he and Pappy, and I may be wrong, listeners and viewers on Fox League and SEN, that he is the form fullback.
Are we running a line through Edwards?
Well, coming back he was great last week, Dylan Edwards, but because he was out just for that, only 1 week it was, but just when you're out of the eyes and your team's not going that well, all of a sudden you become sort of guilty by association.
I think Laurie Daly's got a really tough, period coming up in terms of choosing his team. It's like, what does he do in the halves? I think obviously Nathan's the 7, but who's his 6?
I think it's got to be Moses.
Moses or Luai?
Yeah, I think it's got to be Moses purely with his kicking game. Hey, Nafahu White, I want to send a shout out to Nafahu White. His maturity that he's been able to, to enter into his life, his game, whatever it may be. He once thought he was a really good bench player. Now he realises he's a starting player as well. I think he's been probably overall the Roosters' best this year.
He's been
amazing.
A gun.
Yeah,
he just bends the line. He doesn't bend it. He breaks the line. Gets through it like every time he carries the ball up. He's been very good for them.
Marky Mark, getting better. Mark Nwangani Tuasi.
That's how you pronounce it?
Yep. We've got
Nwangani Tuasi.
Damien Putterpest said, thank you. Thanks to you, Sats. Now every time a Rooster springs down the sideline, Mark Nwangani Tuasi, all I hope for is they they cut in early enough not to be tackled. But
he's a
he's
gun.
going good. Yeah,
like for a guy who's only just transitioned to the game, he gets better and better with it. You know what? I can see the cultural differences between the two codes.
Yeah.
Because when he scored in that corner and he tried to pick up Flanagan.
Yep.
As if to say, "Oh, it's all right, old boy."
Yeah.
Kyle Flanagan wasn't having anything to do with it at all. But he's very respectful on the field.
Yeah.
Hugo
Savala, first NRL try, and congratulations, Trent Robinson. Also, 200th victory as an NRL coach. Sheens, Bellamy, and Bennett. Yeah, so he's in good company. He's a great coach, good man as well. Hey, let's get to a break here on Saturday League Kickoff. Scotty Sattler, Andrew Webster. Keep your texts coming through, 0457 736 736, or give us a call on 1300 01 1170. Stick around. Craig Bellamy is going to join us next. Yeah, welcome back to Saturday League Kickoff. Hope you've had a great start to the weekend, and I hope, it's been a safe long weekend. You had a start to the safe long weekend, or what?
What do you mean?
Have you been a little bit reckless yesterday with the day
I'm never
off?
reckless. When I'm working.
Well, you're at our Allianz.
Scott, when I'm
supporting
working,
your team.
I never.
Were you working yesterday officially or not?
No. I was on Morning Glory with Matthew Johns yesterday morning on SEN. But then I did what I like to do when I watch football these days. I watched it at home with the phone off, with no one being allowed to distract me.
And your little staffy, Stevie.
And my little staffy, that's all I need. Me, my dog, and the football. What more do you need?
Well, they answered back the Melbourne Storm last night with a good victory against the Rabbitohs. Always a tough opposition, the Bunnies, but especially when Wayne Bennett is coaching them. 24 points to 16, and the coach of the Melbourne Storm, Craig Bellamy, joins us on the line. How are you, Craig?
Hey, Sats, how you doing?
Going very well, mate. Going very, very well, and you're probably in a lot better mood than you were last week, because you seemed really flat last week in that post-match press conference after the Dolphins lost. But was it the response that you were looking for last night?
I think our defence was certainly better. Like, that was the big thing I was disappointed in, with the Dolphins. Like, they played really well, but we got off to a really good start, and then they put 40 on us. Without us putting any points on, so that was a bit alarming to me, and probably, a couple of our wins earlier in the season, I'm not quite sure whether we all got, a bit comfortable or whatever, but it was certainly the wake-up call we needed. But I thought, South fought really hard last night. Like, we had a lot of the ball in up their end. We, and I suppose, we just looked a bit disjointed in attack at times. We've had some injuries, whatever, so that there's probably a reason for that. But I was a lot happy with our defence last night. I thought that was, a real improvement.
Belly Ache, thanks for joining us this morning. It was one of the weirdest sort of Storm performances we've seen in a while last week against the Dolphins. How do you prepare after a match like that? Was it different to how you'd normally prepare?
No, it wasn't different. We just, we obviously done the review, and we always, like to think we're honest in our reviews, and we knew we had to, improve in areas, and that's not just the players. Like, at the end of the day, it's a whole club thing. The form of the team, that comes out, and everyone looks at the players, but what the coaches and strength conditioning coaches, like all that sort of thing, all sort of, they all play a part too. So, we all had a bit of a look at ourselves and what we were doing, and probably a little bit of probably what we weren't doing, and and then just map out our week, and then know what we're going to do each day, and then just make sure we do it the best the best we can. And that we went back to really went back to the basics during the week, and we just wanted to just make sure we've been starting well, but we just really focused in on just making sure that it was like the start of the game for us again, the start of the second half, and see can we put a 80-minute performance together.
Yeah, you probably needed that close halftime scoreline to keep them focused. I want to focus on one of your players individually. Eli Katoa. Now, Craig, when he was at the New Zealand Warriors, he was 18 or 19, just come out of rugby union. I remember watching him and thinking, this kid could be absolutely anything. And then for some reason, he was on the market And when you guys signed him, I thought, well, this kid's only going to go one way, and that's through the roof. And his development over the last 2 years has been outstanding, but I still think there's so much more left to him. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I remember seeing him, in his early days at the Warriors, and, you're always impressed with you see him on TV or he played against us. But when he come across, the thing that sort of, being a young player and, reasonably inexperienced, like his game knowledge, like he's a smart footy player, El, and, he's got all the physical attributes as well, and, but like I say, like he's a smart footy player, and, his form over the last couple of years has been as good as any back row that I've seen in the comp, and he's just been, one of our best players, since he's been here. But just his consistency, that's the thing. Just each and every week, he gets his job done and adds to the team. And he's a great guy to have around the club too. He went into our leadership group, this year. So he's added a lot to our club, and we're really feel fortunate that he decided to come to us.
Are you worried about AFL clubs maybe pinching him? He's very good in the air, Bellyache.
He is. I'm not quite sure he's got the endurance to get around that big field of AFL for 2 hours, but he'd certainly take a few marks, I reckon.
Now, do yourself and Frankie Panisi, Belly, and your coaching staff, do you sit around and talk about how much growth this team's still got this year when you haven't had Stefano and Nelson Asafa Solomona with that 1-2 punch in the same game consistently this year?
Oh, no, not really. We just sort of, try and work out who our team is, who's available, who's not, and sometimes you've got to make decisions on, when you've got injuries or, when players, might be struggling a little bit, whether you leave them in or leave them out. So at the end of the day, early in the week, we sort of shuffle down our team, who we're going to have, and then just go with that. As I said, we plan the week. We know when we're training during the week, but really focus in each day and make sure, everyone's doing their job the best they can every day, and hopefully they'll help us, play well on Sunday.
Billy, you and Cameron Munster had, were pretty honest in what you had to say about the Latrell tackle last night. I don't want to ask you again about that. What I did want to ask, though, is someone who's, been around in this game for as long as anyone, maybe only second to Bennett, all the rule changes, all the different interpretations, the way the game is played and we're not even just rule changes from season to season, sometimes during the season. I'm assuming it's very hard to coach these days about how the game should be played, how tackles should be approached. Is it something that you found quite something you've had to manage, something you've had to get your head around in the last 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, I think in the last 2 or 3 years, it can get a little bit confusing, but it certainly gets frustrating. Sometimes the rules don't get changed, but the interpretations might get changed, or this incident is looked at a bit differently. Obviously, with the high tackles these days, I don't think there'd be too many players that intentionally go out there and go and try and hit opposition players in the head. I don't think there's anyone in the game that would do that, and I just think sometimes just I don't know whether it just gets a bit frustrating when, a player's, set to make a tackle and, the guy with the ball actually just drops just before he gets to him. It's hard for him. He can't pull out and, it's like at the end of the day, it's really tough on players and, to be doing that. So, I'm not quite sure what the answer is, and I understand that, obviously with all the, investigating into the head knocks and how they can affect players, and later in life. So, we've certainly had to do something about it and be harder on it. But, like I say, I'm just not quite sure at times whether, we're suspending players and sending them to the bin when, they're complete accidents. So, Like I say, I'm not quite sure what the answer is, but I think it's something that we need to have a look at and hopefully just get a little bit more consistent with our interpretations of the rules, all the rules. If we're going to change them, let's, if they need changing, change them, but let's not just go changing them for the sake of changing.
It must be hard for the players, I reckon, Bellamy, because the game's become so much quicker in the last few years with the 6 to go rule, but there's more emphasis on any high contact. I think that's the issue that the game's got.
Yeah, it certainly has. Like I say, we had to have more focus on that when the information about head knocks has come out, without a doubt. But like I said, I don't think there's not many players in our game that would intentionally go out and hit an opposition player in the head, with their shoulder or their arm. And I think, accidents happen and it's a body contact sport. So I just think, again, as I say, I'm not quite sure what the exact answer is, but I think we all should be looking at it. And then perhaps, just letting the rules settle at times. I think, sometimes rules, they change or the interpretation of the rule changes. I think if we can just settle down and everyone know, okay, this is how it is and this is the way it's going to stay. I think that would help the game and help the players as well.
Alec McDonald, another one, Belly, comes off the bench. He's really good speed. Now, born in New Zealand, moved to Brisbane or southeast Queensland at the age of 9. Is he Kiwi linked or Queensland origin linked? Do you know?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. So that's to be quite honest, but with all due respect, I think he's quite capable. Of playing for the Kiwis or playing for Queensland. He certainly, as you mentioned, his great trait is his pace. And he's a real good kid too. He's, he hadn't played much Queensland Cup when he come to us really. His improvement has been immense, and like I say, he's just learning, every year and just getting a bit better every year, knowing when to run and where to run, and his defence has really improved as well. So yeah, he's a real pleasure to have around the place. He's just a real hard worker. He says everything with his actions. He don't talk too much, but he gets the job done. And like I say, we've been really happy with the way he's been going, especially this year.
Yeah, I think he'd handle a bench position easy. Now, Bellyaker, Hillstorm Hillary is one of our big Melbourne Storm supporters and also one of our loyal listeners and viewers as well, says, morning Belzer, Sats and Webby. How is he enjoying Cameron Munster on the desk with him at presses after the game? He seems to roll his eyes a lot, Bellyaker, when Munster's about to talk.
I reckon if the cameras were back on the media fellas, I reckon their eyes would be rolling as well. So sometimes I think it sounds like an episode of Seinfeld up there with Munster there. So it's a good comedy show. So but sometimes he just thinks too much Munster. But anyway, that's okay. That's why we love him and. Yeah, like I say, he's a good value.
He is. That's probably the best description. He's a Seinfeld character.
Yeah, he is. Close to Kramer.
He's a mixture of all those guys, George Egg-Frame.
Now, I don't know whether it happens in clubland anymore. Once upon a time, and you would have been part of this at the Raiders over the years as a player too, Belly, is the goose of the week. Maybe you used to have to wear a ridiculous shirt or a different hat. Now, I don't know whether it happens in clubland anymore because people's feelings get hurt. But if there was, would Pappy go down as probably goose of the week with the captain's challenge?
Yeah, that was. I'm not quite sure what his thoughts were there, but he probably would. I'd imagine either that or keep dyeing his hair and undyeing his hair. I don't know. He might get a Goose's shirt for that as well. I'm not quite sure, but it wasn't a great challenge. But but anyway, it is what it is.
Okay, from the coach's perspective, as we let you go, Craig, thanks for joining us on this Saturday morning. For our good friends at Temper, great night's sleep night after night. Can you nominate a player who you think had a good night's sleep last night because of their performance?
I thought El, he won the Anzac Day medal, so I'm sure he slept okay last night, and I thought, Trenton Liero, with the amount of work he done, I imagine he would have had a good sleep as well.
Yeah, good stuff. And Jared says on the text line, do you think Fletch and Hindy would be in trouble with bellyache if one of the boys got injured running away from the snake on the Matty John show on Thursday night?
Probably.
No, I think if that was me, I'd be running away too, to be quite honest. So, yeah, it's all good.
Hey, great stuff, Craig. Well done on the victory last night, and also have a great weekend, the rest of the weekend, preparing for next week. Magic round, of course. And thank you very much for joining us on Saturday League Kickoff. Have a great day.
Pleasure, guys. Thanks a lot.
No, he's a good man. He's a great man, Craig Bellamy. Always so giving with his time. They're a fantastic club, and they're back in the winner's circle as well as you. Melbourne Storm. Hillstorm Hillary is one. Stormy Daniel, one of our viewers and listeners, would be loving yesterday's performance as well. Let's get to a break here on Saturday League Kickoff. More of the NRL round. What are we into? Round 8. Round 8.
Flying.
Coming up after the break. Welcome to Saturday League Kickoff, and that was a great chat with Craig Bellamy. I love his honesty about the game, and he looks at it from a player's point of view as well as an administration point of view, from a club point of view. But the ability, he's got this great ability, and a lot of people don't know this about this. This misconception about Craig Bellamy that he doesn't have a sense of humour.
That he's too intense.
Yeah. Now, do you know he wrote a book years ago?
Yeah, he did.
It's called Home Truths.
Yeah.
I think it's called. It's a great book. And Stormy Daniel, who we just mentioned in the interview there, he just alluded to the fact that we saw the documentary, which was an amazing documentary on Stan, and but also what's next, the biography. It'd be interesting whether there you go. There's your next project.
What?
The Craig Bellamy biography.
I'd be up for it.
There you go. You heard it here first. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I love it. Hey,
Good idea.
It'd be good.
You should bankroll it.
Yeah.
No, but you know what? I was interested to know his thoughts on not just the Latrell tackle, because I hear this from other coaches and players as well, and particularly former players, as like yourself, Sats. The game's become so quick and so physical. And I understand the importance of, particularly in this day of litigation and also around CTE, they're very more than valid concerns about head injuries in the game, but God, it must be hard for a player.
Yeah.
It must have been hard for Latrell last night. You know, he's an old school fullback, as we were talking off air before we came on the show about. You know, he goes hard. And that's what players are taught to do. But sometimes that tackles just go wrong, and sometimes with the surface, with the speed of the game. And there's a big player on a little player. It must be sometimes it just happens.
I'm glad
sometimes head contact like that just happens.
I'm glad you brought it up, because we're going to talk about the Bears and the 17th team in 2027 very soon. But the Latrell Mitchell incident last night is only big news this morning because it's Latrell Mitchell. If it was anyone else, it would probably just be another sin binning. But because it's Latrell, Su'Fa'alonga had to leave the field. But Su'Fa'alonga, you go back and watch it. When he delivers the ball, it's a little bit like the Reece Walsh, Joseph Su'Ali'i one. When you release a ball as a player, you sink back in the pass. You sort of take the speed off the pass, and as you deliver it, you take the speed off and you sink in the tackle. And it doesn't matter whether there's bad footing underground. It's just a natural reaction from players. As soon as they deliver the ball, they just relax. Reece Walsh did it in Origin for Su'Ali'i. And Fa'alonga did it last night as well with Latrell Mitchell. Now, admittedly, Latrell Mitchell is an old school fullback, like you just said.
Yeah.
Remember my old man used to tell me stories about Graham Langlands. If you broke through the line, it was just a draw and pass to the supporting player. You knew that after you delivered the pass, Graham Langlands was going to make you pay for it. He was going to make you pay for it. He said, you were going to hurt after it. And I know that's out of the game now. And Latrell's a little bit like that as well. He knows that if he's not going to be able to take the intercept, knock the ball down, or slide off onto the supporting player, he's going to make you pay for it. And I thought his body level last night was perfect. If Su'Fa'alonga hadn't faded off the pass like you do when you deliver a pass, I think he hits him straight around the chest, and it's illegal. Because he's sinking and because it's split second and you expect someone to lay off because of that, it's not going to happen in a game that's so confrontational.
So he's got a grade 1 charge, so it's one match.
He shouldn't be missing footy for that.
Maybe
disagree.
I think his record probably had something to do with it.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's probably where it's at. But it's I was worried that he was going to get more. To be honest, I thought he'd be facing more because it's Latrell and because it wasn't pretty. Yeah, but definitely that's definitely at play here because it's he's got prize in the last 3 years. So to be honest, if I'm South, I'm feeling like one match is okay. I was worried last night it's going to be more
under the current rules, maybe.
Yeah,
absolutely. But again, we shouldn't be levelling players out of the game because.
No, I get it.
Yep.
I get it because of incidental contact.
Yep. Hey, Crawls is on the text line as well. Says, Webby, have you had some filler in your lips? You look amazing.
Yes, I have actually.
No,
I haven't.
Actually, I need to make.
Hey,
a black eye.
no.
Just looking at yourself on the screen up here, yeah.
No, I still look my same rough head. I'm more worried about my co-host here who has a black eye.
Yeah. Shout out to
What's happened?
My jiu-jitsu coach, Phil.
My jiu-jitsu coach.
He opened up a can of whoop ass on me the other day.
Did he? Yeah. What happened?
We're just in what they call the roll, and he threw his head and elbow back and
the jiu-jitsu teacher. Good. Good.
He was going street fight on me.
Good.
Street fight. Hey, let's talk about the Bears. Looks like, in principle, they are going to be the 17th licence. At the moment, the RLC met Wednesday morning with their Premier, Roger Cook. Now, the licence fee was not part of the deal. Now, there is a licence fee now if you're going to get a team in the competition that you've got to pay to the NRL. It's like any sort of franchise, isn't it? But it hasn't been signed off. But in principle, it looks as though they are going to be the team, not for 2028, but for 2027.
Yes,
now,
that's right.
A lot of people think straight away, that's too soon. It's not. I'll give you an example why it's not. But are you surprised that this has taken a 180 turn from what it was 2 or 3 weeks ago?
It was all but dead.
Yeah.
I think, to be honest, and I said this on Morning Glory with Matty Johns yesterday, my read on it, for what it's worth, is that I think the WA Premier Roger Cook has played Peter V'landys off a break. The RLC chairman was after about $320 million, 120 from the government, just in terms of not so much a licensing fee, but like a large commitment per year over 10 years, and a $200 million upgrade of HBF Park. And as I understand it, the WA government said, no way, we just recently upgraded that facility for the Women's World Cup in 2023. We're not going to do it again. So I think the WA government played hardball and they got a franchise for far less. Now, there's all these different figures being thrown around, from 85 to 70 million to 50 million. I'm not entirely sure what the numbers are. I think it's 20 million for a centre of excellence. I think that's definite. But the rest of the money goes into pathways and grassroots football, and a commitment to grow the game in Western Australia. The interesting for me, Sats, is that it's going to be controlled by the NRL for the first 5 years before handing it over to members. I spoke to Andrew Abdo before I came on air today. Like, I don't think they're looking for, like a Twiggy Forrest, a big private investor to come in and buy the club. My only problem with this whole process is that they... Remember, like, in October last year, they said no to Peter Cummins, the cash converters guy.
Yep.
So the people in the West who have been pushing for a franchise based out of Perth for years have been completely ostracised from the process, or from any franchise that's going to be there. To me, I think the NRL have to swallow some pride and try and bring those people back into the fold. You want people who are passionate about the game over there being involved in that club. I know there's also some concern from NRL clubs about what it means for to have an NRL franchise that's controlled by the NRL, and what the conflict of interest there in terms of salary cap, in terms of who they make chair, who they make CEO, who goes on the board, who they get recruitment-wise. I think other clubs are already concerned about maybe their best talent, either playing-wise, coaching-wise, or administratively, being poached by an NRL-controlled club.
It is going to create absolute bedlam in the market.
It's going to be, and in the player market, it's already going to stir things up.
Yep. I got a text here from Braden, who's actually in Perth and listening on SEN and also watching on Fox League as well. Boys, I hope the Bears goes ahead. Stay positive moving forward. Can't wait for it to happen. If it actually does happen, I heard Brad Arthur has been approached to coach the side. Now, he has publicly put his hand up to say he would be open to any sort of discussions about moving back to the NRL. He's currently in the UK Super League. That would make sense. He's got experience and he's taken teams to finals and grand finals.
He's
as
100%
well.
been earmarked.
Yep.
That's who they want to coach that franchise. There was a little bit of mail that Wayne Bennett might linking Wayne to the club. I know that Peter V'landys is a big fan of Wayne Bennett, and he was making that. He was linked to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've since been told that's not the case. But I have heard a little whisper about Wayne Bennett being linked to the PNG job.
Really? We can't keep rolling Wayne out, can we?
I think he just bounces from contract to contract. He'll coach who's about 180, I reckon, Wayne. But I know one thing: he won't dismiss the speculation.
No.
If there's one thing he likes,
Loves mystery,
He likes
doesn't
being
he?
linked to jobs.
Now, I've been in this space before. For our listeners on Sports Day and SEN throughout the week, they know that I've been talking about my experience with the Gold Coast Titans. We'll give them the licence around May 30, 2005, when Chappelle Corby was convicted, actually, and on the same day. But many said, is it going to be enough time for the 2007 season? So we had 17 to 18 months before players started arriving on the Gold Coast with their families, accommodation, first week of October. It was plenty of time. There was, we had managers going to clubs asking for permission to negotiate with players. Now, back then you weren't allowed to talk to players before June 30 of the year they were coming off contract, which I think it should still be that way. But in saying that, we got permission to talk to Luke Bailey, Preston Campbell, Scott Prince, to be able to sign them for the first year. So
Scott Prince was your big signing, wasn't he?
Yeah, Luke Bailey was the
and
first.
so was Bales.
Well,
yeah.
he was like the
Yeah.
best front rower in the
right.
world. Both he and and Petro were the best front rowers in the world. And for him to commit himself to a new franchise was a huge risk, leaving the Dragons, where the Dragons were sitting at that stage of their of the years, playing finals. So that was some really big signings. Sent a really good message to signing other players as well. Now, you mentioned earlier on about putting those key people in positions. Now, there's a guy named Steve Anderson out there, and people that be watching on Fox League or listening on SEN would know who this guy is. He was at the Melbourne Storm when they set up in 1998. No relation to Chris. Was part of the coaching staff there. Worked for the Brumbies. Sorry, worked for the Force, the Western Force, when they're over there setting up a lot of the grassroots foundations. Knows rugby league back to front. Now, if there is a guy that you need to set up from your general manager of rugby league all the way through to your grassroots and your junior development programs, he's your first phone call. Bears or PNG, he's your first phone call NRL, because he just has it all mapped out. So
Okay.
I think there's some positive signs ahead for them, actually. And talking about players who possibly could be available, now Tino Fasul-Malawi, after 2006, has options reportedly in his favour.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of Storm players coming off end of 26 too. So it's Tino would be a marquee signing for them, wouldn't he?
Yeah. And as we go to the break, Lundy says some would argue Chappelle Corby got an easier sentence than if she signed with the Titans. He's already into it, Lundy, on a Saturday morning. We have got a caller coming up next. We won't get to them now, but our line is 1300 01 1170 if you want to give us a call. Our text line 0457 736 736. We're going to get to your texts and the calls after the break. This is Saturday League Kickoff. Welcome back to the show. And as we round out the first hour, and welcome to our viewers on Fox League and our listeners right across the SEN network. Love your interaction, whether you're calling us on 1300 01 1170 or sending a text on 0457 736 736. We're all brought to you by Wing House as well. The best seats and beers always guaranteed. On the line, we are going to get to one of our callers. Who we got? We've got Adam from Sydney. How are you, Adam?
Good, mate. How are you?
Going very well, very well. How's your weekend started out? Has it started out okay?
It started out well. Anzac Day is the greatest day of the year.
Yep.
And now I'm going on a 13-kilometre walk to Bondi Beach.
Oh, beautiful. Nice.
It's a long walk.
You broke into a sweat, Webby,
I did,
just
good.
thinking about it. Hey, Adam, you want to talk about Latrell? What's on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I keep hearing he's an old-school fullback. Paul Latrell, if it wasn't him. he's got a pretty significant history of being charged. And if I think back to that tackle, or whatever you want to call it, on Joey Manu a few years ago, even when that occurred, there was almost a bit of sympathy for Latrell at the time. And, I've got nothing against him. I think he's a great player, but, I think he's been involved in a few questionable incidents over his career, and I'm not quite sure why he always seems to be on the sympathy side.
Yeah, it's a good point you make, because he is quite a polarising player, isn't he? And he doesn't make any excuses for it as well. I think he likes to be that player that just, I suppose, just flirts with the edges of the game.
He dances on the edge.
He does, and I've got to say, I love those kind of players, but unfortunately there's a consequence that can come with it. I don't think there's a sympathy card for him. It's the way he plays. I don't think he's got any excuses for it as well. I think it's just the way he's always played. And we've got some text here about he's always been careless and reckless. Just ask Joey Manu. His tackle on Farlunga was clearly careless, 396 is saying. It probably is careless. Is it reckless? Well, the outcome was reckless, but did Farlunga play and I'm not blaming Farlunga. I'm just saying the way the game is played, unfortunately the player that's delivered the ball last night does play a role in the outcome. Not ideal, I know, but when a player is unfortunately leaving the field with a HIA, there is a consequence that comes with it.
The Manu tackle was terrible. He deserved everything he got for that. I think this one was a little bit different.
Yep.
I thought when I say an old school fullback, in the sense that he plays it hard. He does. He plays it on the edge. And you're right. If you're going to play like that, then you've got to wear the consequences. I think the one match ban is enough, given that he's got priors.
Yep, absolutely. Is there a world, 132 says on the text line, 0457, I should say, 736 736.
There's lots of numbers going on there.
I thought I was giving out Webby's mobile number then.
Don't do that.
Is there a world where Lockie Galvin is a Bears marquee signing for 2027?
Oh.
Does Isaac know something we didn't know?
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's where he's headed, and not Parramatta.
That's a good text message. It's definitely got people thinking.
I'm sure one of the clickbait journos out there will probably give that a run in the next 2 or 3 hours.
1300 01 1170 is the call line. We've got Damien, I think it is, on the line. How you going, Damien? You good?
Yeah, good, Sats. How are you, mate?
Going very well, buddy. What's happening?
Look, mate, the thing I wanted to raise is if you look at a man like Peter V'landys, who's been extremely successful in two very, very prominent sporting enterprises, he's not going to let this WA franchise fail. Like, he brings a level of crash-through ruthlessness to anything he does that's got to be troubling, surely, to the other 17 franchises.
Yeah, well, you are right. His track record says when he puts his mind to something, it's usually big, it's usually bold, Webby, and a lot of the time that comes out with a lot of fanfare. There's a lot of people in other sports, I think, in Australia sometimes would love to have the effect that he's having on our game.
But you make a really good point. That's right. He just basically does whatever he wants. Yep. I always laugh when V'landys goes, "Oh, look, I have to go and consult the ARL Commission first." Really? He is the ARL Commission. And I know for a fact that the other 17 clubs weren't very happy about being left in the dark about the announcement, about it getting out about the Bears. But, that's the world that they live in under Peter V'landys. And you're right. That's the concern from clubs. If this is going to be controlled by the NRL for the next 5 years, are they going to get an unfair advantage over the rest of the competition? I bet you they will.
Do you think the Bears should sign Ben and Shane Walker and Sam would come over with them as well?
Oh, not bad.
I don't think that Nick will allow that to happen. That's all for our Fox League viewers. Join us every Saturday from 10 a.m. right here on Fox League. But we're still going for another year. You can head across the SEN app. If you don't have it, you can download it wherever you get your apps from. This is Saturday League Kickoff. Scott Sattler, Andrew Webster. Yeah, welcome back to the show. Saturday League Kickoff. Scott Sattler, Andrew Webster here for the second hour. And if you're only just joining us, you can catch the first hour on the podcast, wherever you get your podcast from. Download the SEN app as well. If you haven't got it already, to download the podcast, very easy process. to do so. And for our Fox League listeners who watched the first hour and now switched across to SEN, hope that becomes part of your staple diet on a Saturday morning, like I had my acai bowl and 2 pieces of multigrain toast.
I'm very happy with
That's
you.
my Saturday routine.
Is it?
Yep.
You know what I eat on a Saturday morning?
What?
Rugby league. I just want to clarify too, and thank you for whoever texted in. I've got this wrong here. So Latrell actually got a grade 2 for dangerous contact.
Yes.
So I'm sort of looking at the rest of the charge sheet and it all blurred. And you know what? The problem is the NRL send through their charge sheet and it's in tiny little bits, tiny writing. It's like the charge sheet for ants, and all the others are. So it wasn't it wasn't a careless grade 1. It was a dangerous contact. Grade 2. The thing that really matters is that he's facing a 1-match suspension with an early plea.
Okay, and
which I think, to be honest, is probably fair.
And there are a lot of our listeners and viewers on Fox League that are texting and also saying he deserves to serve time on the sideline. It was. I don't think it was dangerous.
Reckless, careless.
I don't know
how they turned. Like, was it careless?
I think it's careless. I don't think it borders on reckless. Now, many may argue because the outcome is usually from a reckless movement, which is a HIA, whatever it may be. That can happen from careless as well. I just think if there are 2 parties that are involved and 2 parties play some sort of role in the outcome, again, not ideal, it's more careless. It's reckless when you come in and a player's upstanding, for example. He hasn't sunk in the tackle. He's not drifting away from the tackle, putting him in a position where... Joey Manu.
That was reckless.
That was reckless, yeah. So I don't think it's reckless. I do think it was careless, but... It's the world we live in at the moment. Hey, what we did cover in the first hour, if you're only just joining us, the Anzac battle between the Roosters and the Dragons as well, which was, you were out there. What was the atmosphere outstanding again?
I wasn't there.
I thought you said you went.
No.
Oh, you sat on the couch and watched with Stevie Nicks, your dog.
I like to watch alone.
So you're not really a Dragons fan because you didn't go to the game?
It's got nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do with that?
No, I don't, people annoy me. I like to be at the football. I like to be at home on my own, no phone, no distractions, watching. That's what I do.
Storm versus Rabbitohs as well, and we're going to touch a little bit on the Warriors who had a win last night against the Knights. We've got a lot of passionate Knights supporters that have texted the show as well. 0457 736 736 is the number. A lot of it is about what's going on with our attack, what's going on with Adam O'Brien. Those obvious questions when a team is not going so well. The first person that the target is on is the coach.
It is.
He knows. Adam O'Brien knows that it comes part and parcel with the role. That if you're not winning games, questions are going to be asked, and he's got to answer those soon. But
I'm sure he wants let him hold on. Let him hold on till Dylan Brown gets there.
Well, 4 from 5.
And
finals?
he was the key. It was like he was the architect along with Peter O'Sullivan about how they're going to play when Dylan Brown gets there next year.
I think you make a really good point.
I think they need to let that. To me, they look like a team. This is, from an outside looking in, they look like a team that knows that Dylan Brown is coming next year. Don't you think?
To me,
it's a team that's going to be different next year. When
if
Dylan
I was
Brown
defending
comes.
against the Newcastle Knights as a defender, and I saw Bradman Best on my right, their left, and then Kalen Ponga's coming around to that side, they're 2 key attacking weapons. I just know where the ball's going, and I'm going to drag another defender across. It's going to make it a little bit easier for those guys that defend on edges, which is a really difficult place to defend on. So it's about coming up with other threats and asking questions of the defensive line and not always having to rely on Bradman and Kalen. Fletcher Sharp was, when he was throwing into halves, everyone got really excited, and even though he grew up playing in the halves, it's different playing halves as a junior and playing in the halves at the NRL level. He's got to start saying to himself, I'm a key player in this side. I've got to be the player that's going to take the threat off Kalen and Bradman Best. I've got to create a threat somewhere else. And if I do that, it's going to be for the team, better for the team overall. You can't always be seen as just a runner. You've got to be seen as a player that can create as well when you're wearing that jersey number. Just my thoughts, but I think that's a way that some of those players in the Newcastle Knights can think, how can I take the threat off our marquee players? So
good point.
So we're going to touch on that a little bit later on, and also we will touch on Lockie Galvin just a bit. And this is on the back of Shane Richardson appearing with James Graham on the Buy Round podcast. If you haven't listened to it, go and listen to it. I thought it was a really good interview between James Graham and Richo. I thought he spoke with great empathy. I thought he spoke with I thought he spoke from the heart. But most of all, the message I got out of it is the message he wants to send to the rest of the NRL about the way the Tigers want to be seen moving forward. And so I thought it was a really good podcast. We're going to touch on that very soon as well. And the Broncos' demolition of the Doggies on Thursday night. No one saw that coming. I think many people possibly saw the Broncos winning, but I definitely didn't see the Broncos, if they were going to win, by winning by that margin.
Not at all. I think I think the Broncos signalled that when they're in that sort of mood, they're the team to beat.
Yep.
You know, as much as Melbourne.
Yeah.
And as much as the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs were coming off basically what felt like a finals game in the Good Friday game, 65,000. They'd been warming up to that match for quite a while. And they were the bubble was due to burst at some stage. It's almost like a little bit of a perfect storm for Canterbury in many respects.
I agree with you.
And they were going up to Brisbane. It was flogging down rain. They were in a mood, Brisbane, and Adam Reynolds was basically playing, some of the best football of his entire career. He had it on a string, whether he was passing it or kicking it. So, if I'm a dog supporter, I'm not kicking too many cans today.
I think you make some really good points there, Webby.
For a change.
That is, it's a smack on the backside they needed.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because you can. I mean, when you win like you do, you can fall in love with yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that as a footy team. You get a bit of a strut and a bit of a swagger about yourself, and that's good for the rugby league side. But now and then,
you need a reality check.
You need a little bit of a hurry up now and then. And every really good team that goes on and wins the comp goes through that.
I tell you what, you're better off having it now than in 3 months' time.
Leading the finals. 756, you're right. We're going to talk about Payne Haas's number, Scotty. We're going to talk about Payne Haas's number a little bit later on. We've got Robert from a beautiful place in New South Wales called Mudgee, and he's on the line. How are you, Robert?
G'day, Scotty. Good.
What's going on, pal?
Listen, I want to talk to you about knockbacks don't seem to be called anymore.
Yep.
Now, the other night, Gutho did exactly what I've coached juniors fullbacks to do for years and years and years, to go up in the air and turn your back on the opposition, which is what he did, and he knocked the ball back. But nobody seems to know what a knock on or a knock back is anymore, I should say. Nobody seems to know.
I agree with you.
So on the same page as you, Robert. I cannot believe we let so many passes out of dummy half go forward, good as gold. A knockback, that's a knock on. And I tell you the other one, you can't. Obviously, you could see it from last night's game. You can't touch a kicker at all. You can't even have a negative thought about a kicker, or you're going to get penalised.
You are right, but Robert, you make a good point. I feel as though that sometimes when they challenge it, they go up to the bunker. They say, we're not going to reverse it because we're going to embarrass our mate on the field.
That's right.
And also, I think there's a mindset that if you've dropped it, you don't deserve to keep it. It's like touch footy. If you drop it, you don't deserve to keep it.
The rules are the rules.
There are so many that are so obvious that they go back. For some reason, they find the ball going. It's a difficult one to explain, and I think it's on the lips of everyone, to be quite honest. See what you do, Robert, from Mudgee? You bring out the anger in Webby. You just rile him up.
Well, if you've been watching the game for your whole life, like you tell me, well, you're a legend of the game. But you tell me, like, don't you reckon that the interpretation of a knock on has just completely changed?
It has, yeah, it has. It's completely left of centre. And as a player, you'd just be that frustrated with some of the ruling. As a fan, and I mean, we've got an emotional investment. These guys have got their victories and games and everything. And if it's a knock on to an individual player, and this is the way the individual player looks at it, it's clearly a knockback, but it's called a knock on, but it goes against you as a player.
Yeah.
And then when coaches are starting to look at statistics, do I pick Andrew Webster? Do I pick Scott Sattler this week? Let's look at their numbers. Unfortunately, it has an influence as well. You guys serious? Really? Latrell gets the same time off as the bloke he hit. Stop defending this man. You are better than that. Imagine if it was JWH or Radley. Well, I think he actually gets
let me
sort
guess.
of polarising.
That sounds suspiciously like a Roosters supporter.
Yeah, Pato 2021. He has a track record for doing this kind of stuff. Pato, agree with you. I think he is in the same. I think he does get polarised a little bit like JWH and Radley, the same sort of reputation. I'm not saying that he should be given a leave pass. What I'm saying is I think he understands. I think his coach understands. I think Blake Solly understands that he's a guy that flies by the edge. Like he just flirts with the rules a little bit, and they know. I think sometimes that they're going to lose him for parts of the season.
Pato, go and listen to Craig Bellamy and Cameron Munster's comments after the game. And so it's not just us
Yeah.
who are making that argument.
Yep. Thank you very much for your text messages. 0457 736 736. Going to try and get to as many as we can because there are a lot of texts and we love your interaction. If you want to give us a call, 1300 01 1170 is the number. Scott Sattler, Andrew Webster on a Saturday morning for Saturday League Kickoff. Yeah, welcome back to Saturday League Kickoff. All thanks to Wing House, the best seats and beers, always guaranteed. Thursday night was a dominant performance, wasn't it, Webby, by the Brisbane Broncos before the season kicked off. We had, before even round one kicked off, we were thinking Panthers, Melbourne, Brisbane. Bulldogs were sort of thought
Dragons.
about as a top four side, but we weren't quite sure. But they were the three teams, I think, that really stood out. Now, the Panthers obviously haven't had a great start to the season, found their mojo a little bit last week. Brisbane Broncos, a little bit the same, multi-personality at times. But Melbourne Storm were the same, you'd say, as of last week, but very rarely do they go two in a row.
It's been a funky comp.
So it's been the Bulldogs that have been the
down.
most consistent, but then we come Thursday night, it's pouring rain. I saw the way the Broncos played against the Warriors last week. I thought their game plan was completely wrong. That's because of their halves. They didn't adapt on the run. They tried to go round the Warriors in wet conditions, and they got humiliated because of it. And it was well done to the Warriors the way they handled the game against the Broncos. But in saying that, they changed it this week. They played in the wet. They just played really direct. They ran. They asked questions of those edge defenders. They turned players back on angles, which you've always got to do in the wet. Make your defenders, just have to use their footwork. And they found success early with Willison. We're going to talk about Payne Haas very soon, but 42 points to 18. It was very dominant.
It was, and it was spearheaded by Adam Reynolds, 34, and never looked better. And looking to run around again in the next couple of years. He's not re-signed at Brisbane yet. I don't know. I'd be surprised if the Broncos let him go. I mean, he's such a quality half, and his kicking game, as we said earlier in the program, his kicking game was just phenomenal. Like, we all know what a great kicker of the ball he is in general play, and obviously his goal kicking. But that was an absolute masterclass from a veteran number 7. We talked about this again yesterday on Morning Glory about like what would he command in terms of market value. Given his age and his tendency to, for his body to break down, obviously his shoulder injury late in that game against the Bulldogs is a concern. Yeah, 750.
750.
If he was a little bit more reliable in terms of his body, he's $1 million halfback.
Yeah, absolutely.
But because of his age and his body, he's probably 750, 800. But that's not bad for a 34-year-old
I'd just be
halfback.
playing him home games.
Yeah, that's right.
I wouldn't let him travel.
No,
I just if you had to get on a plane and for long distances or whatever it may be, plane then bus. Might sound silly, but it's about protecting the assets. And if you played him at home games, and you've got young Kobe Black coming through as well, which both he and Ben Hunt, that would be their role along with Michael Maguire and the other coaches, Trent Barrett and and Matty Ballin to get him ready for first grade rugby league. But they've got Ezra Mam to come back. It looks as though it's going to be Hunt and Reynolds will start the game. Ben Hunt move into hooker. Ezra Mam come off the bench and slot into that 6. It's a great position to be in for Michael Maguire.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And let's remember, like, on the eve of the season, there was a lot of talk about the Broncos being unsettled because of the hard disciplinarian that Michael Maguire is. Well, whether that was true or not, or whether it's been resolved, the result's there for all to see. Because as I said earlier, when they're playing like that, when they're in an attacking mood like they were on Thursday night, they're the team to beat.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And brutal in their defence as well. Billy Walters, Corey Pakes was starting the season, going outstanding. They want Billy Walters to start getting that early game involvement as well. So just swapping the hookers. Tyson Smoothie, when Ben Hunt gets thrown into that position, someone's going to have to leave the club there.
That's right.
One or two are probably going to have to leave the club. They've got Blake Moser playing at South Logan, who was a really good number 9 as well, coming back from injury from the pre-season. It's an interesting position there in the Brisbane Broncos. They've got a wealth of talent And one of those, Selwyn Cobbo, is coming off contract. Played fullback on the weekend. He needs to be in a position, I believe, Webby, where you've got to keep him engaged in the game. If you play him in the centres, it's too easy for you just to drift out of the game and look at things that are going on, whether it's in the game, in the field, you start thinking about things. When you're on the wing, you've got to stay engaged. When you're at fullback, even more engaged. And we saw he hasn't played many games at NRL level as a fullback, but he wants fullback money.
But I think he always saw himself as a fullback.
Exactly.
Didn't he? I remember his infamous podcast.
Yes, about Kevy.
About Kevy, but people, I actually, would you believe, went and listened to the hour and a half of that podcast. It was a hard listen, but there was some nuggets in there, and the thing I got out of it was how much he wanted to play fullback, and you know, you could see that that's how he sees himself with the way that he played on Thursday night. I just wonder if he leaves the Broncos, does another club sign him as a fullback?
Well, both he and Katoni Staggs are the two big names that were coming off this year. We don't know whether they can keep both of them. We don't know what their salary cap looks like. But when you look at their top tier players, their elite players that are taking up a large chunk, you've got the likes of Payne Haas, you've got Reece Walsh, you've got Ben Hunt, who isn't on as much money as what he probably could be on to a lot of other clubs. You got Adam Reynolds again. That's not taking up sort of your 1.1 or 1.2s, but he's still up there. Then you got Katoni. Then you got Selwyn, just to name a few, and you got Paddy Carrigan as well.
There's a lot of talent there.
Sometimes something's got to give, and you can't be undercutting players because then the NRL won't register the contract to the open market. So I'm wondering whether they've got to make a decision between Katoni or Selwyn. Not quite sure because they've got Dean Mariner that can play in the centres.
Tough decision, yeah.
I saw Katoni Staggs do some real little tiny efforts. They call them team-based stats, that go unnoticed to a lot of people, but to the coach, he would just be loving it. It's just little things where he's running out of marker and making double tackles and knocking the ball out of a player's hand while making the tackle and getting possession for his side. Those little things, they really stand out to the coaches. 6 unanswered tries, 18-0 after 13 minutes. Reynolds, well, he left the field with 5 to go. After scoring his try, great offload by Payne Haas, he clutched at a shoulder. He didn't kick the goal. Selwyn Cobbo kicked the goal right in front of the goal post. And he was able to soldier on like he does, the proud little Redfern boy that he is. He soldiered on. But this is what he had to say post-game about that injury.
A little sore. It sort of went dead on me that when I scored the try, and pins and needles, and then got it pretty bad that last one. But it's okay now. But I'll have a look at it when we get back and then go from there. But it feels okay at the moment, but it was pretty sore.
Some talk it could have been a burner.
It went dead with pins and needles. It was sort of burning, so the last one felt pretty bad, but worse than when I scored the try.
Is that a burner or a stinger? Or is
there a difference? Pretty much the same. It's a little bit like the chicken wing or the all those different names for tackles that we got. Yeah, but the stinger and the burner are pretty much the same. You won't know. He's one of those guys, Adam Reynolds. He'll grab at the injury for a while, but he won't let you know how much pain he's really in. He's a tough little kid.
He is a tough little nut, isn't he?
He is. Payne Haas, 28 runs, 261 metres, 102 post-contact metres. So that, to listeners, what that means is if I run the ball and as soon as someone tackles me, how far further do I advance the ball at contact? 102 metres is ridiculous. He's run a rugby league field in extra metres through contact. 32 tackles, 0 misses. If it's not for Adam Reynolds, we're talking about Payne Haas again. And we had a text here earlier on saying that Payne Haas, he's the best front row that you've ever seen. His numbers, he's playing for unders. He's still getting paid very handsomely, Payne Haas. But front rowers once upon a time, and Wayne Bennett started this. I think it might have been a Jack Gibson thing. I'm not quite sure. But they always believe that front rowers should never take up a large chunk of your salary cap. Front rowers now are becoming the highest paid players in the game because they set up the platform for the guys like your Reece Walshes and your Adam Reynolds to have space.
But also if you've got one that runs as quickly as he does, as hard as he does, that can ball play like he does, you know what I mean? Like he's almost like a halfback in many ways in a front rower's body. The way that the skill that he's got, he is a freak of nature, Payne Haas.
He is. Now, before we get to the news, judiciary news again. There were sin bins with Curran, high shot on Payne Haas. Like Josh Curran's 6 foot, and for him to get up as high as he did to Payne Haas, he's lucky he didn't get sent off. Tupanua with 2 charges. Marcelo Montoya, Dean Mariner was sin bin. But the Bulldogs stars, Burton, Tupanua, Josh Curran, facing bans of up to 13 matches.
Yeah.
There you go, love it. We had a text about that, Pete. Our panel man, who with your audio there, they love the Law and Order.
Were you a law and order?
Remember LA Law?
Oh, of course.
That was the first one.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
LA Law, that's a 1980s.
A huge Law and Order fan. I loved it.
Were you?
Yeah.
I didn't really get into it.
Didn't you really?
No.
Yeah. No, loved it.
No.
Hey, your calls, 1300 01 1170 and your text 0457 736 736 is the way to get in touch with the show. And as I said, we're trying to get through as many as we can. There's so many. Windsor Warriors right as well. Everyone was talking about the Sharks before the season kickoff. Consistent top 4 side. Adding Adam Fanua-Blake would take them further, according to the inverted commas experts. Windsor Warrior, you're right. Hard team to read, the Sharkies.
I think they're symbolic of the rest of the competition.
Yeah.
Like some days they look great, some days they don't.
Yeah, exactly.
A bit like ourselves.
And gents, Murray says, Madge said they're still working on Cobbo's fitness. There's still the 1%ers, the work ethic that concerns me. And we had those sort of concerns, didn't we, with Latrell early in his career? Like, did he fade out of games? His body language sort of tells you that he's not fit, but they are. Those sort of players are match fit. It's hard to explain.
I understand what that means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Craig Greeny was like that, former front rower.
Yeah.
When we did fitness drills, he was never at the front of anything, but he never dropped out of anything. He always toughed his way through it. But if you asked him to play 80 minutes, he'd do it on his head, and he'd ask for the 81st minute if he had to. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Like I said, all your calls, 1300 01 1170. Give us a call. Love to hear your calls and also get through to your text messages as we get to the news. Shane Richardson, when asked about Galvin, the contract and the situation that he's currently in, this is what he had to say.
I'm just saying to you, he's got a contract in place and we'll deal with it on the basis that we have a contract in place. What I can control as a CEO, I can't control the selection of the team and how they feel with each other and how much they love each other and cuddle each other. I can't do any of that. What I can control is a contract.
We are getting Galvinitis, Lundy says.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, Lundy's very creative.
Hey, Lundy, try covering it. Because the drama is, I find from writing about it and trying to get to the bottom of it, is you can't get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like there's all
murky.
these things playing out in the background that you don't necessarily understand or see, which is, to be honest, in every sport when it comes to, to promising players like Lockie Galvin, it's these shenanigans happen all the time. In rugby league, they seem to happen far too often. I agree. Oh, look, the thing that I like about Richo is that he is so passionate and emotional, and he's also an old school administrator, and he has dug in and said, and I think he's made a really clear statement about what the West Tigers are about. I think Benji's the same. I also think the players are the same by saying that they didn't want to play with Lockie Galvin after what happened there a couple of weeks ago. I'm glad that he's back this weekend. I'm glad that it was only for 1 week. I think the players made their point. It's time for them to move on. And I understand what Richo's saying about a contract being in place, but in the dead set fair income department, if Lachlan Galvin is there next year, I'll turn it up. I just can't see. I can't see.
Really?
I just think at some point it's going to not. I don't know if untenable is. I've just seen these things happen so many times, Sats. You know, it'll get to a point where both parties agree that the best thing will be for them to part ways. What Richo wants and what the West Tigers want is they want something out of it. They'll let him go if they can get something out of it. On the other side of the story, you have Isaac Moses, who's in many respects an evil genius, who works leverage better than any other manager in the game, and he will be trying to leverage his player out of that club to sign a contract elsewhere. We all expect it to be Parramatta. To be perfectly honest, he did the same thing with Mitchell Moses a handful of years ago.
I think from a player, I would have been filthy at the messages that were being sent out through manager to Shane Richardson. You know, we haven't heard Lockie Galvin use
this
any
is
of
the
those
thing.
excuses.
We haven't heard him. We haven't heard him speak. We've seen
but the agent talks on behalf of the player,
That's
especially
right.
when you're young.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
And whether they've come from Lockie or not, again, I'll use that phrase, you're guilty by association. So as a player playing with Lockie, I would have been filthy initially because you're basically the message that's being sent out. via agent to CEO is that this guy is not happy playing with these guys. So as a player, I take offence to that. I'm happy for him as a player to see him play second grade last week. I'm happy for him to come back into first grade and learn a lesson.
That's right.
Let's move on together. Let's go make the finals for the West Tigers for the first time in a long time. Now, I'm going to put my CEO cap on. It's good business to leave Lockie Galvin where he is for a number of reasons. One, he's not going to cost you a lot, from reportedly 300 to 350 a year next year, so he's not going to take a lot of your salary cap up. Secondly, you teach the kid how to honour contracts. I know clubs do the opposite as well, but when you're making the business decisions, you're in a completely different mindset, okay? Teach the kid that he signed a contract. We could have upgraded you, but you knocked that back. So this is what a contract is. Also, I wouldn't be releasing him because you are a big reason why we make finals in 2025 and 2026 from a club that hasn't played finals for a long time. So for a lot of those reasons, I think that this game is very forgiving. And I think as a playing group, in about 3 or 4 weeks, if they're winning games, the West Tigers, they're not going to love that Lockie Galvin wants to leave them. But if they're winning games and marching towards a possible finals appearance, the players will forgive him and understand that he wants to go for whatever reasons, whether it's more money, whether it's he wants to play with another playing group, whether this is manager-driven, who knows. But the players will forgive him for that as long as they make the finals. And he's a big reason why they play finals this year and next year. So from a business decision, I'm not letting him go anywhere.
Sure. But you can't tell me, Sats, that if Parramatta are prepared to give the Tigers, I'm not whoever, a player that they need from 26 onwards, a young player, an older player, whoever, if they won't, the Shane Richardson won't go good as gold.
No,
you can have him now.
I don't think he will,
Ooh,
because if you let him go next year,
I don't know.
If he's a big reason why the Tigers can play the finals over the top of another player.
I'm not saying this year. I'm talking about next year.
I'm talking about next year. If he's a big reason in 26 why the West Tigers can play finals, Lockie Galvin, which he is, and you're not going to get a player in return that is of equal value on the field from an age perspective, his influence on the game, he's going to come back and haunt you in 2026.
What if you get 2 players?
But
this is how it happens.
But he could come back and haunt you in 2026. He could be a reason why you don't play finals in 26 because he's playing on a team that's going to beat you on its day.
If I know Richo, he'll be trying to work some angles there somewhere.
Yeah, we both know Richo. I've got no doubt he's doing that. But purely from a business point of view, I wouldn't be letting him go because he's too good, he's too young, and he's got too much of an influence on you, on whether you win or not. What do you think? 0457 736 736. Just before we get to the Saturday games, hey boys, I'm a Knights supporter. Please tell me something to cheer me up. They're very hard to follow at the moment. Ben from Newcastle. Yeah, it's hard when your team is losing, Benny. We know that. What's something to look forward to?
You live in one of the greatest cities in the country, so that'll do.
Beautiful. And get on a plane and go to Magic Round next week and watch all the games.
There you go.
There you go, Benny. Hope we fix it for you. Cowboys, 5:30 today.
I've got a feeling we haven't.
Yeah. Queensland Country Bank Stadium. Now, Cowboys fresh off a bye. Sometimes it's good for some teams. Sometimes when you're winning, you don't want the bye. You just want to keep rolling on, keep the momentum rolling on. The Cowboys have found a little bit of form of late. And the Gold Coast Titans, on the other hand, covered this game against Canberra last week. Got into a 16-0 lead, capitulated very quickly, and then were solidly beaten as well by the Canberra Raiders. The Titans, I can't work them out. I know they didn't have Jaden Campbell was out. He was a big out. And also David Fafita is out. Tino Fasul-Malawi was amazing. He was outstanding. But I can't work it out with the Titans. The only thing I can put it down to is they need Kieran Foran back, just a level head.
They look like they miss his calmness and just experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I tell you what, God, they're getting hard to watch. They're such a frustrating team, don't you reckon? Because they could be anything.
They're not mentally tough. They can't defend.
But that's such not a Des Hasler coach team, isn't it? It's really weird.
You're right. Yeah, and they just can't defend mistakes. If they make a mistake, they'll compound it. If they get a penalty against them, they can't react in a positive nature. So
what is it?
I think
need you to go in there and have a yarn.
I think if Foran's there, it's you got the ability on the field. If you take big leads, 16-0. I think Melbourne, talking to Cam Smith throughout the week, just bruising there. Talking to Cam Smith
Joel and Fletch bruising.
I was talking to Cam Smith in the studio for Sports Day during the week. We're talking about Melbourne, and he said, if we got to a big 16-0 lead, myself, Cooper and Billy and the senior players, Ryan Hoffman and those guys, we'd get together as we're walking back, and either I'd be taking the kick and Cam and Cooper and Ryan Hoffman and that were sitting together, walking back together, and they'd be saying to the team, okay, the next 7 or 8 minutes, we're just going to kick to the corners, be really boring, and we're just going to put our foot on their throat. We're not going to try and beat them by 50, and we're just going to wait till they shoot themselves in the foot. And it was just by death by 1,000 cuts. And he said at the moment, I think Melbourne are getting the 16-0 lead, for example, and like the Gold Coast were on the weekend, and they want to make that 16-0 to 22-0. Then they want to make it 28-0, rather than just playing the long game.
So Melbourne did that very well last night.
They did.
At one point, I think the ball had been in play for about 12, 13 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they love.
So that's what they've got to improve on. I think Titans have won one of their past 13 games in Townsville. Johnny Bateman back for the Cowboys, straight back in, which surprises me. Jeremiah Nane named to start. David Fafita back. He only missed 1 week. It was a 4-week initial diagnosis. Lofi Khan Pereira is back. They need his try-scoring ability as well. And I suppose the big matchup, I love looking at the matchups. Tommy Dearden up against AJ Brimson. Potentially 9 Origin players on show for Queensland as well. Hey, let's get to the Panthers and the Seagulls. CommBank Stadium, 7:35 p.m. Tommy Turbo returns. To me, that flew under the radar a little bit.
What, Tommy coming back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thought of it just because of all the Galvin situation and the Bears and everything like that this week. I think it's really flown under the radar. Webby?
It has. They're obviously a different scene when Turbo's in.
Yep.
Are Penrith no longer in crisis?
They looked good last week.
They did.
They looked.
It was the win they needed.
Nathan had a little bit more time on his hands. The forwards were winning some battles. Dylan Brown gave himself a little bit more space, so he was a little bit more effective. So, yeah, I thought they were really good last week.
Yeah, it's
I think this is potentially the match of the round.
It's an exciting game. I mean, but Penrith, don't you reckon though? Like it seemed they're not going to be they're not going to be the most exciting team to watch, are they? For the rest of this season, if they're going to be successful.
Yeah, and when you actually watch Penrith, they're not like a Melbourne or a Canberra from the early 90s and mid 90s.
No.
They're a team that just slowly grinds you down.
Well, that's what they did at Melbourne it was a masterclass in the
Exactly.
grand final. That's why I thought people were going, it was a boring grand final.
Yep.
For the rugby league purists, I thought it was such an absorbing. But that game, and that was. But I mean, after their win last week, that's how they won last week, just by doing very Penrith things and doing them very well.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know that? Doing Penrith things and doing it very well. Whatever that means.
You're a very learned man.
It's been a long week.
Yeah, of course. The big match up there is Nathan Cleary up against Daly Cherry Evans. That'll be one to watch as well. So there's your Saturday listening to and viewing as well. SEN League is covering the game as well, and also for Fox League viewers. Hope you enjoy that Saturday afternoon of rugby league. You are listening to Saturday League Kickoff. Thanks to Wing House. Your seats, best seats and beers, always guaranteed. Let's get to a break. Yeah, welcome back to the show. As we wrap the show up, we want to thank you for all your text messages, the callers as well. Sat's living in fairyland. Last week he said it could be resolved with Galvin and the Tigers. Now you're saying keep him there for 2026. He's gone this year and the Tigers get 2 players, one from the Eels and one from the Knights, 502. I can't remember saying I think it could be resolved with Galvin. Oh, no, I think it could be resolved. I think stranger things have happened in rugby league, 502, where...
Sats was you said you hoped it could be resolved.
Yeah, and I think...
Because he's an optimist.
I am, the eternal
nice
optimist. I think it's salvageable.
Takes the tension in the game.
Unless if the deal hasn't been done elsewhere, which legally you're not allowed to do.
I don't think a deal's been done anywhere. Does anyone else think that? I don't think one's been done at all. Because I'd be knocking back $6 million if I didn't have another deal elsewhere to go.
There is another chapter to this saga because 280 Old Marketers, he says, there a world where Isaac Moses and Richo come to an agreement that if we let Galvin go, you guarantee we keep Jareem Buller. I didn't realise Isaac got Jareem Buller.
Got hold of
wow.
Jareem Buller.
There you go.
Anyway, I'm sure he'll do what's best for his client.
Raiders,
Sorry, you go.
Yeah, Raiders versus Dolphins tomorrow, 2 p.m. at GIO Stadium. The Raiders have always been one of my most exciting teams to watch. I love this. And tomorrow, Jimmy Smith, Justin Horo, and also Brett Kamali. Now, Jamal Fogarty, this scenario, Ricky Stewart, they've offered him 2 years. They've upped the ante. He sort of fired a shot over the bow at Manly, saying if they've offered him a 3-year deal, I hope they're going to fulfil it, because I hope they don't get rid of him in the 3rd year.
Ricky fired a few shots.
Yeah.
He fired one at the manager. I don't know across the bow either. I think it was right directly at the manager and directly at Manly in that very Ricky Stewart way.
What about the way he said, they're meant to have a meeting with the manager, Taz Bartlett, and Taz, from all reports, said, I can't attend because I've got a cold. And then Ricky just politely drops in to his interview that we saw him the next day at the footy. He was bouncing around. He looked okay.
It's vintage stick.
You know one thing, Taz, if you're listening, don't piss off Ricky Stewart. Yes. Just go straight through the front door and have a chat to him.
He keeps receipts. If anyone keeps receipts in this game, it's the stick man.
I love him.
Has Jamal Fogarty, is it done? Because this one's getting into Galvin territory, talking about what Jamal Fogarty's going to do.
If he doesn't play last week against the Gold Coast with the kicking game, I don't think they win.
Right.
Yeah.
So 2.1 over 3 years for Jamal Fogarty, and this is the greatest respect to Jamal, but that's a lot.
Yep.
That's a lot for a player of where he's standing is, and at 31.
Yep.
And I called the great Andrew Johns this week, and I said, Joey, do you feel like you were a halfback born in the wrong era? Yeah. And look, there was some colourful language came down the line from the 8th Immortal because look, to be honest, if Jamal Fogarty's on 2.1 over 3 in the current era, what's Joey on?
What would Joey be on? What would Joey and Lockie be on?
They'd be 1.8. They'd have to be. JT?
It'd be definitely the first $1.5 million player a year.
That's right.
And then your third parties to go with. I hope Joey's listening.
I'm sure he is. He's a big fan of us.
He's just come out of the surf at
I'm
Bronte.
sure if we bagged him, he'd find out about it. No, he's a great man.
700 over 3 years. The current market will tell you that really good halves, and he is a really good half.
Andrew Johns?
No,
no, Jamal. I reckon Jamal's playing. That's why I find it sad. I know I've said it on this show. That's why I'm sad to see him, likely to leave Canberra, because it's just starting to come good there after the last couple of years of sort of finding his feet there in the nation's capital.
Yeah, exactly. 3 years. There's 3 years there. Ricky's always said, love him, love his family. I want the security. I hope they play him the 3 years if he gets it. He doesn't want to stifle the progression of Ethan Sanders as well, who's out with a facial injury at the moment. So
they need a bridging halfback.
They do.
They need somebody, but that's a term I just created.
Bridging halfback. Raiders versus Dolphins tomorrow. GIO. West Tigers versus Sharks. 4:05. Leichhardt Oval. How good's that? Coming up on SEN now. It's the Crunch Time team. Jimmy Smith and Justin the Scope Horo, 12 till 2. And then Noddy is going to join them for the call from 2 p.m. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Craig Bellamy, for joining us, first and foremost. Thank you to the listeners for all your calls, all your text messages. I apologise we don't get to all of them. We have so many that come through every Saturday morning. Webby, have a great rest of the weekend.
You too, Sats.
And all the listeners, thank you for joining us on Saturday League Kickoff.